Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to my channel. As you guys can tell from the title of today's video, I am bringing you my September wrap up. I cannot believe it's October already. I mean, I can, but I can't at the same time. I feel like this year has just gone by incredibly fast, and I'm actually having, like right now, I feel like I'm having a good year, but at the same time, I know I've had a really rough year, so I feel like I'm just ready for 2018 to be over, honestly. Can anybody else relate? I'm just really, really tired of it. But I wanted to start off this video with the books that I'm still currently reading, because I'm not one of those people that ever actually finishes every single book by the end of the month. Like, I'm always that person who picks up the book the last like 3 or 4 days of the month, and there's no way I'm ever going to finish it. So I did want to sit down and talk to you guys about the books that I'm currently reading. That is how I'm going to start off this video. So I do have Goodreads open in front of me. A book that I'm still currently reading, I actually have my pre-order right here for it, but I was actually sent an ARC from Chelsea Darling Reading, and that you guys have seen in my blog, but it'd be Map of Days. I am so excited to be reading this. I think right now I'm about 60 pages into it. I really like it. This is the 4th book in the series, so I won't go too in depth on kind of what happens or what this book is about, but essentially Miss Peregrine's follows a group of peculiar children as well as their keeper Miss Peregrine, and they live in something called a loop, and they're stuck kind of back in time, and they do have these sort of uncanny abilities. Like, one of them can float, one of our main characters is able to use fire. It's really cool. Our main character Jacob, his grandfather actually used to go and visit them, and Jacob has the uncanny ability to actually see and feel supernatural beings in this world that aren't necessarily good, and they do actually come over to his world to kill his grandpa, and that is how the series starts. Now, the 4th book is a little bit different. The peculiar children are actually visiting Jacob in Florida where he lives, so I do like that aspect of it. It's definitely a lot bigger than I was expecting it to be as well. I know when I read the ARC, or when I received the ARC, I was like, wow, this book's giant. But this book is actually also very giant, so I'm really excited to dive further into this, and so far I am really, really liking it. I like seeing the peculiar children outside of their world and kind of in the modern day world. The next book I am currently reading, I will insert a picture because I'm actually listening to it on audiobook, but it'd be The Dry by Jane Harper. This is a book that I wanted to read for a very long time because I've heard great things about Jane Harper. This book essentially follows a detective who's kind of moved away from his small town in Australia, but he's brought back when his best friend is actually found and accused of killing his entire family, including their young son, as well as himself. But there's a little bit more to the story than the people in the town suspect, like one of the police officers and the son's mom. But the reason why the story is actually really cool is a long time ago when they were younger, his best friend's girlfriend actually dies, and his father is led to believe that it was one of them, and there's like a big, you know, kind of like search for her and her killer, and they don't know who did it, and you're kind of trying to piece together that murder as well as how it ties into what is currently happening. So far I really like it. I'm listening to it on audiobook, and I really like it because the narrator is Australian, and it's actually really soothing in a way. I love Australian accents. It's actually my very favorite, so I'm really liking that. The next book that I'm reading, there will be a video going up later on in the month, but it'd be The Extinction Trials by S.M. Wilson. The live stream for this is actually on the 20th. I'm really excited to talk about this book. It is kind of pitched as the Hunger Games meets Jurassic Park, which I don't necessarily see. I mean, I can kind of see, but I don't really agree with that because I'm not seeing so much dinosaurs in this so far. I'm about 100 pages in, so I think I'm like a third of the way through it. I'm not loving it, but I'm not hating it. But I'll give you guys my full kind of thoughts in the live stream if you guys want to find more information for that. I will leave G's video down below, as well as the video for our last live stream. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and get into the books that I actually finished in the month of September. I'm going to start this off with, I didn't read a whole lot of books this month, and I'm totally okay with that. I read more than I thought I was going to, but I'm kind of going through a little bit of a slump, and I think it might be because I was doing so much in the month of September. So I do have quite a bit of manga, quite a bit of comics, and a few other full books that I read in here as well, but I'm going to go ahead and just get into what I read in the month of September. So I'm actually going to start with the comics and manga. The one comic that I did actually read, you guys have seen a video for already on my channel, but it'd be Zodiac Star Force. I really liked this book. This book follows a group, as you can tell, of girls. They are high school girls, and they are kind of given these supernatural powers from what I'm assuming is a goddess. I really like this book because they do spend most of their time fighting monsters and things like that, but also the artwork, the coloring in this is beautiful. This is a book that we read for the Panels Book Club, as well as another one of the books that I have here to show you guys. I really like this. I ended up giving this, I believe, 5 stars because it was just such a wholesome kind of book. There's a lot of bullying, then there's a lot of backlash for the bullying in this book. It's just about girls who really care about each other. I will list the video in the cards up above that I did for this book. I just genuinely loved it. I love the characters. I have, however, heard that the story kind of goes down from there. I actually tried to buy the rest of the series. I believe there are 4 of them, but the next one, volume 2, is in paper form, but the last 2 are only on Kindle. So I don't know if I'm going to get around to reading the rest of them. I'm kind of sad about that, but I did overall really, really love this one. The next book that I have here is a manga that I read that I also read with the Panels Book Club, and that'd be That Blue Sky Feeling. This is about a boy who moves to a new school, and he's really affable and starts befriending a lot of different people, but one of the boys that he actually befriends is a boy named Sonata, and Sonata is kind of an outcast because people assume that he's gay, and they make jokes, and they're really mean. Now, that doesn't deter our main character Noshiro from like becoming his friend, but this book kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, I liked it. I didn't really relate to the characters. The only other thing that I didn't really like about this is they use a lot of terms in this book. Like they always call him like queer, and there's just other terms that they use that I just didn't really agree with. I didn't really like the way the author, I understand that the other characters don't like him because he's gay, but I just feel like it was overdone. Like the word was used constantly. Let me see if I can find the word that I'm talking about. So the word is actually homo. They call him a homo constantly in this book. Like it's literally done every 10 pages, and I did not like it. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars because I found it kind of hard to relate to, because obviously I am not a young gay boy in high school, but it was still kind of cute. I did like the ending of it, and I'll be picking up the next one. Hopefully it gets a little bit better. I have heard it gets better, but we'll just have to see. But overall, wasn't my favorite, wasn't the worst book that I've ever read. Now, speaking of gay boy manga that I absolutely love, I did finally read I Hear the Sunspot Theory of Happiness. This is the volume that follows just I Hear the Sunspot. This follows our 2 main characters, one of which is deaf, one of which is not, in a blooming relationship that they kind of have. I like the way this one plays off of the first one. I like also the introduction of new characters. The first one solely kind of revolved around our 2 main characters and then 1 or 2 very minor characters, but there's actually a brand new main character introduced in this one, and I really liked it. I also liked that the other high school students, or actually other college students that are in this, you get a little bit more backstory on them as well. I believe there is a 3rd volume. I pre-ordered it. I don't think it's out yet, and I'm really excited to read it. I just really love this. I think this has fantastic deaf rep in it as well. There's a lot more in this one than there was in the first one, and I really, really like that. So if you're looking for more deaf rep or you want more LGBT rep, this is definitely a manga to read. All right, now I'm going to get into the actual novels that I read. I do have 4 here. The first one that I want to talk about is actually Thinner by Richard Bachman. This is actually Stephen King. This is his pen name before he became Stephen King. I loved this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This follows a man who is receiving sexual favors from his wife while he is driving one night, and he actually runs over what is called a gypsy in the book, and the father of that gypsy actually curses him. Actually, I think it might be, I don't know if it's his daughter or his wife, but he curses him following the murder, because that's really what it was, because he's actually just given free reign. Like nothing happens to him. He's like a big hotshot lawyer. He's not a terrible person, which I think is what makes this novel really good. But what happens is he's unable to gain weight. He's constantly trying to eat, but unable to gain weight. And it's really, really interesting. I liked the book, but I did read half of it and then listen to half of it, and I did not like the narrator for the book. But overall, I love this story. I really love the movie. I've seen the movie a bunch when I was younger, and it's very short. It's under 300 pages, but it's very dark. The ending, like I said, is what really gets me, because I know kind of from the movie what happens, and it's just a phenomenal book. If you want more dark and kind of brutal stuff in like a rough kind of way, I think you'll really like Stephen King writing as Richard Bachman. Now, the next book I read was a complete shock to me that I loved it this much, and I ended up giving it 5 stars, and that'd be City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. I loved this book. This is a middle grade book, and it follows our main character, and she's kind of able to see ghosts. One of her best friends is ghosts, and she's also able to walk through the veil and kind of interact with them at the same time. And her parents are ghost hunters, but they don't know that she's able to do this, and they do actually uproot her to Edinburgh, and they try to shoot the show, and a lot of crazy stuff happens. This is a middle grade book, so I'm not going to go into too much of what happens because I don't want to give it away, but I did actually film an entire reading vlog. I will link it up above for you guys. I just really loved this book. I was completely blown away with the fact that I loved it, considering it is a middle grade. If you are a fan of Victoria Schwab, if you are not a fan, if you are a fan of middle grade, if you're not a fan, I think you'll still really love this book. Speaking of another Victoria Schwab book, I did also finish Vicious. I'm not going to go in depth really at all with this one. I did end up giving it 4 stars. I will link once again up above the entire wrap-up that I did for this if you guys want my full review on it, as well as you can find that on Goodreads. But I did really like this book. I wouldn't say that they are villains. I would just consider them morally gray. But I honestly think that's up to personal opinion, because I know a lot of people who did feel that way. They really felt like Eli was. But there's just too much of a emotionally gray moment in this book that it didn't really register as villain to me, but I still did thoroughly enjoy it. I definitely struggled with the first like 100 pages of it, which I tend to actually have happen with Victoria's writings, but I still overall loved this, and I did just receive Vengeful on its release date, and I cannot wait to read it. I believe it's going to be our Hypernaut pick for October and November. Now, miraculously, I'm going to talk about what ended up being my favorite read of the month, but I'm only going to give it 4 stars, but it was still my favorite, if that makes any sense. Does anybody else have that? And that would be my best friend's Exorcism. There are things about this book that I didn't necessarily like, but that I still overall loved the plot of the book and like my experience reading the book and the way the book made me feel, and I feel like it was perfect for this season, and that's why it is my favorite read of the month. But this actually follows our 2 main characters, Abby and Gretchen. One night they are out with their friends and they're kind of experimenting with some drugs, and Gretchen actually wanders away from the group and gets lost, and they do find her, and she's naked and afraid in the woods, and she is not acting like herself. And then over the course of the rest of the book, you start to realize that Gretchen is possessed, and obviously it sort of makes sense. But this book was really cool. I love 80 references books, and I really like the Exorcist portion of this, and I really like the overall feel of the book. Now, I wouldn't say this is a horror book. I know a lot of people try to say that it is, but it's really not. There's a couple of creepy things that happen in the book, as well as an animal death that really kind of freaked me out. But other than that, I feel like it was just more of kind of spooky. Now, I definitely think it's really good for this season, but I would not say it's horror. But overall, I loved this book. I think that there are a few things that I didn't like the ending of the book. I didn't like that. I did kind of get confused with some of the characters a little bit. Some of the character building was all that great. I did confuse Gretchen with another character that they are friends with. But overall, I really like this book. I think that if you're looking for something kind of campy, which by the way are my favorite kind of horror movies, I think you'll really like this book, as well as if you're really into the 80s, you're definitely going to love this. Alright guys, so that is it for today's video. Those are all the books that I read in September. Like I said, I didn't have the best reading month, but I didn't have the worst reading month, and actually overall I am pretty proud of myself. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and think about subscribing, and leave down below your favorite read of the month. And if you didn't read any books last month, because sometimes that just happens, what is a book you're looking forward to the most in October? But I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys in my next video.